Greetings, everyone, and welcome to our webinar on unlocking the value hidden in your inbound transportation. Thank you for joining us. I'm Lou Smirlis, and I'm the editorial director with Canadian Transportation and Logistics. I am joined with Richard Zwolak, National Manager, Logistics Services at Tim Hortons, and Doug Payne, President of Nulogx. Gentlemen, great to have you here with me. It's interesting that shipments seem to be optimized based on the needs of the vendor as opposed to the receiver. And I find that this can often result in increased cost, in lower capacity utilization, in warehouse congestion, and a slackened supply chain. But it's interesting that companies that receive large volumes of freight often have the potential to unlock significant value by creating a managed inbound program. And when implemented correctly, I think these initiatives can result in significant process improvements and cost reductions, often within a very short time frame. In this webinar, that's what we're going to explore. We're going to explore how to unlock the savings in your inbound freight by hearing how Tim Hortons, one of Canada's leading companies, successfully implemented their program. Doug, I'd like to start off with you. And I'd like to start by defining exactly what we mean by an inbound program.
Well, thanks, Lou. An inbound program is really where a company decides to take control of all their freight into their facilities. Mm-hmm. It's probably the one area of the supply chain that has not had a lot of focus. Most companies have left that control to their vendors. And given the current economy, we've seen companies that are looking to their inbound to drive efficiencies and reduce costs out. In other words, they're changing the terms of the payment and taking control of the freight from the time of the PO issuance, selecting the carrier, managing the entire process of the supply chain.
Now, it's interesting that you mentioned that a lot of companies tend to leave this inbound process to their vendors, yet it's such an important process. Why do you think that is?
Well, companies have done a really, really good job at looking after what we call the last mile, and that's delivering to their customers. And they've really done a good job at driving efficiencies all the way through that. But usually due to lack of resources, either people or systems or lack of data, they've never really gotten into that inbound portion of their freight. And I want to say that data is absolutely critical to gain the insight to reap the benefits.
You mentioned benefits, and perhaps this would be a good time to ask specifically, what are the benefits in your view?
Well, there are a number, Lou. I mean, one of the things obviously is to increase that supply chain efficiency. But some of the things that we've seen is aggregating smaller shipments into much larger shipments, either through individual vendors or across vendors. We've seen co-loading across vendors, maximizing cube utilization, thus minimizing the number of deliveries and reducing the number of overall loads. Companies have enjoyed increased visibility into their dock, improving their labor planning and reducing congestion. We've also seen very favorably managing their outbound capacity, their carriers, increasing their buying power with them and on continuous movements or multiple legs within their carrier, within their private fleet. And one of the big issues right now, as we're all aware of, is reducing greenhouse gases and carbon emissions.
If we're looking at the types of companies that would benefit from such an inbound program, could you give me an idea, which companies would benefit the most?
Well, we firmly believe that everybody should be looking at their inbound and working to understand it. But traditionally, three factors are probably critical mass, multiple SKUs, consistent shipping volumes, and those are really 3 points, but every program has many, many variables to the inbound program, and we've seen it work for many companies.
That's great. All right, Rich, I'd like to take the conversation over to you now and bring you into the discussion. Taking a close and in-depth look at the Tim Hortons success story. Now, obviously, Tim Hortons, a well-known name, a financial success story. Tell us how transportation is contributing to that success.
Well, thank you, Lou, for the opportunity to again share TDL success story with other folks within the logistics industry. First and foremost, transportation of goods is the lifeline of TDL, and it's the hallmark of our organization and our restaurants. As an organization, we continually introduce new promotional products to our restaurants and add them to our menus. And we need to be sure that we really stick to that adverb of just-in-time transportation, dealing with these such promotional items. Example, roll up the rim, monthly donut bagel promotions. One of the core values of our organization is customer service is paramount. And customer service to us is, yes, the storefront customer, but also our restaurant owners. If we as an organization don't provide the goods when needed, we in turn tarnish the Tim Hortons image and the trust of our restaurant patrons.
Now, Rich, I understand you implemented your inbound program at the turn of this year. Can you tell me, if you can go back to that time, what made you decide to launch such a program?
So toward the back end of 2009, we ran an internal analysis, and we identified cost-saving opportunities as it relates to freight allowances versus the lane rates themselves. So again, the financial opportunity was identified, and secondly, we wanted more control of our inbound freight to optimize operational efficiencies at the DC productivity level, improve on-time performances at scorecard level, and also improve on consolidation points as well.
Now, it sounds like quite an undertaking. Can you give me an idea of how extensive the scope of this program is?
Well, you have to take into a number of factors into consideration. Again, the multitude of vendors that are involved with this, your suppliers, our 5 TDL distribution centers located throughout Canada, and also giving consideration to our 9 third-party distributors that are located throughout Canada and the U.S. as well. And of course, given primary consideration to our 3,300 plus Tim Horton restaurants across Canada and the U.S.
So a lot of different entities that you have to bring together and get them working together.
Absolutely. There's a number of specific touch points, and they all relate to one another, because at the end of the day, from vendor to the TDL or Tim Horton storefront, the impact will ripple through, and we need to ensure that we had alignment on all points.
So speaking of that, what would you say are the goals that you identified in